This is the Beyond Data Management podcast powered by HS GovTech. Now here's your host, Cameron Garrison.
Happy Tuesday. Welcome all across Nation. Thanks so much for joining us today. And as you can see here, got the tree behind me. We're fully in holiday swing. In fact, it's a winter wonderland in here. And next week's show is actually going to be the last one of the year for the show this year. And it is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do a highlights from the first 30 episodes that were done in the inaugural year 2025. And so some just really great stuff. And we've enjoyed putting it together. So make sure to join us next week as well. Fun conversation today. We've got a picture that we're going to talk about. Joining us all the way from out the Pacific Northwest, Bonnie Waldmarson from Idaho. She's the Environmental Health Section Manager at the Idaho North Central District. Did I say that right, Bonnie?
Yes, except I'm not a section manager.
Okay, so I don't know how we got that bad information. So, bad host error. What's your title now? Sorry.
It's just a general senior environmental health specialist.
Okay. Yeah, we wouldn't want the section manager to see that and panic. What? There's been a coup.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Good. I apologize. We don't normally run behind, but the decoration was being done. And so I really appreciate your patience and hanging in there with us today. So you came out, we were going to talk about, you had a great photo. You tell us the story behind it from the NEHA photo contest. Mm-hmm. But you are, as so many are in environmental health, you don't have the luxury of specializing in just one area, right? Obviously you do food
Correct.
And things, but you guys are across the board. Kind of what's the scope of your agency's programs up there, and what all is involved in your day-to-day portfolio?
Yeah, so Idaho is unique in that we are divided up into districts. And so we have 7 districts across the state. And what that means is each district is responsible for an average of 5 to 6 counties where they're at. So my district, my health district, it covers 5 counties. And we're pretty rural for our 5 counties. So we have a pretty small team. So we cover everything. We all are involved with our food program. We are all involved with our onsite septic program. We're all involved with our land division program. And then we have some solid waste facilities. So we only have one individual covering that because there's like 10 of them. And I think that number might actually be less. So we have one individual that covers that. Specifically, I'm in charge of our childcare program, and I'm also in charge of our drinking water program. Again, based on numbers, we don't need to have a lot of people covering those.
In fact, on the drinking water, just as a note, duty calls at the most unexpected times, right? I think you're actually on call around water quality today. So if the folks at home, if she dashes off quickly, she got paged away. What is it exactly you're on call for, and the team that you're working with on that?
Yeah, so because of our rural nature, we have a local water lab that will do weekly pickups. And so those pickups are on Tuesdays, and generally for the bacteria samples, it takes about 24 hours to get the results. And so Wednesday, we start getting results in, and if there is a positive total coliform, the lab will call. Because of the time the courier service gets to the lab and the samples start running, we start getting calls coming in about, I'd say about 10:30 our time, Pacific time, between 10:30 and 11:30. So it just kind of depends. Some days we don't get any calls. Sometimes it's like, I have a call and here's like three places. And so because the turnaround time to get repeat samples in is pretty short, we need to get a hold of those water systems pretty quickly so they can drive to the closest lab.
Do you guys use the state lab, or do you are you using private labs?
Option. We have a private lab, so where I'm located, there's actually a lab about 30 miles north of me, but I have a water system that is about 2 hours south from where I'm located. So if they have to have a repeat sample, they're going to have to drive.
Wow.
They could do overnight shipping, but again, they have to make that arrangement. So oftentimes they opt to drive just because even shipping a package overnight for these rural locations is challenging.
And that's the thing about anybody that's spent any time, even if it's just casual vacation in the West, knows it's huge. And you're right. The districts is like a lot of times it's county or city based. There's a few states where you've got districts where multiple counties, but you have more land to cover because you've got the region, but also just the wide open spaces of the West, right? You must your team must spend a lot of time driving across the rural Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, we have one county, and I think it's like in the top 10 largest counties of the nation that he has to cover. It's pretty rural, but it's the largest in our state, but it's one of the largest in the nation as well. So he spends a lot of time driving. He's one of the harder ones to get a hold of. So
yeah, that's a lot. Do they drive? Do you guys drive government or department vehicles, or is personal vehicles with reimbursement?
Yeah, we have assigned vehicles. So less, no wear and tear on our vehicles, but a lot of road miles. So
that's good. While we're talking about the region, like you only see headlines, right? And so you never know these days with what to trust in the news. But while we're talking about it, your neighbor to the west, Oregon, it seems like, and again, not know at the local level where it's really a hot button, but there's been a lot of talk of some of the Oregon folks love Idaho so much they want to join you, right? Is that actually a real thing that people are talking about and pushing for?
That is a thing. That is a thing, but I personally have not been following that story, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know where it's
either. Go.
It's got to be considered a compliment to Idaho, maybe a little bit of a slight to Oregon. I don't know. Again, I don't have enough RAM to keep the details of that one in my head.
Yeah, I like I said, I have not followed that story, so I guess we'll all find out at the same time.
So you actually are also, I hope it's not like the title where I was at a bad piece of information, but I think you're also the president, are you not? I'm sorry, not the president, the secretary and treasurer for the Environmental Health Association there in the state?
Yeah, I am. So I am the Idaho Environmental Health Association Secretary Treasurer. I think I volunteered for this about 6 years ago now.
and did you think it would be 6 years, or did you think you'd do a year or two?
I thought it would be like a year or two. We're very small. We only have about 45 members. And all of the members come from the health districts, even though our association is open to anybody in the environmental field in Idaho. But
yeah, it's a lot of work, isn't it? Like, I think that people enjoy going to the conferences for their various associations every year, and I think often they don't think about just how much work goes in year round so that they can just show up and have a good time and learn at the conference.
Yeah, that's very true. And we had a very strong leadership team, and then they all moved either to different positions or moved out of the state. And so we've kind of been in a growth for the last couple of years. So kind of just stumbling along, like the goal is to get a conference agenda together. Anything else outside of that is a bonus.
I hear you on that.
Yeah. So we're kind of excited that we're going to be relaunching our association newsletter here, hopefully by the end of the calendar year. So
that's great.
We haven't had that in like over 20 years. So
wow. Is it going to be electronic kind of email distribution, or? Yeah,
email distribution for sure. But we just haven't had anybody either take an interest in it or what. So hopefully it's a start, and we can get people to participate more through that.
That's great.
So
Well, we will, as we always,
baby steps.
yeah, and you do what you can, right? I will send
Mhm.
you as anybody who's on the podcast that wants it. We can send you a transcript and obviously all the raw video files and things. And so maybe you can feature some of the awesome stuff you're saying today in the Resurgent newsletter.
Yeah.
So tell me, let's back up. And what's been so fascinating to me. We just started this podcast for EH this year, and in talking to people from all corners of the country, different size departments, people from brand new inspectors to Dr. Dijak from NEHA, and every contributor in between. What's so interesting, the common thread is their story of how they got into environmental health, and there's a theme there. And
Mhm.
I don't know, because we hadn't talked about this in advance, but it's never fails that most of the folks actually didn't have, like, when you're growing up, you want to be a firefighter or an athlete, almost to a person. None of them
Mhm.
actually had this on their radar, including in a lot of cases, even when they were in college, and they almost backed into it. So I'm just really curious, how did you come to your career in environmental health? And kind of what attracted you to it and made you feel at home?
Yeah. So I am probably unique in that my mom actually worked for the health district that I'm currently working in. She had been the nursing supervisor when she retired at about 35 years in public health. And she had a very interesting career starting in Colorado and then moving to a small town, Idaho, and then finished her time here in the main office.
So that's amazing. So I don't think we've ever talked to one you're second generation.
Yeah. And it's interesting because our current director for our health department, um, her mom used to be the director, but both of us kind of knew about public health. It wasn't one of those that, there's a job opening and what is this public health thing? I think a lot of people stumble into public health, not knowing what it is. And, we everyone kind of is like, we don't want to talk about COVID, but we do. And I think COVID kind of brought up the general public was like, public health is a thing.
It's so true. You're right. And I think especially for EH, right? Because you would think initially the public health, the nursing side, obviously,
Mhm.
but because of the closures and the stay at home, and
Mhm.
especially the way that affected things like restaurants, you all ended up taking more than your share of abuse because you were the tip of the spear and messaging and dealing with this, weren't you?
Yeah, and so to kind of go back to your initial question about how I stumbled into this, so my mom had told me about the environmental health team and the weird stories that they encountered, and I was going to be a veterinarian, and chemistry and I were not friends. It's probably just the short version. That was my dream goal. So that wasn't working out, and I ended up being in the classroom as a teacher for a couple of years. I don't know about other states, but if you were hired after a certain date, they're not required to renew your contract. So I'm kind of scrambling, looking for a job. And there was an opening, happened to be in this health district that my mom had been working in. She had been retired by the time I had applied. But so I knew about environmental health. I knew about, broadly speaking, what they do. Um, and when I was going to college, I was working in the food industry, but one of our inspectors that is now one of my coworkers, she actually inspected me during when I was in college. So that was kind of
Oh,
a
wow.
weird,
Small world kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, she doesn't know that because she wasn't aware of who I was, but
you remember her.
I remember her inspecting me. So
So I don't want to
Like,
get you in trouble
yeah.
here, but was that a good memory or bad memory?
It was just it wasn't good or bad. It just was kind of an interesting how things kind of come together.
Yeah, your mom must have been proud and excited, right? Like for you to end up not only in the same field, but at the exact same agency that she dedicated a
Yeah,
lot of her life to.
yeah. So, and just kind of talking to her when she actually stumbled into public health when she was in Colorado. She was a nurse, a pediatric nurse, and ended up with a local health department because they were doing some kind of program with migrant workers in Colorado at the time. It was like the mid 70s. Um, and so she really liked the public health aspect of it versus when she was working in the hospitals. Um, and so she kind of stumbled into public health. Um, but I knew about public health because of her. And um,
That's
so
great.
yeah, it's
That's
definitely a job that people don't know is out there. Um,
it's so
and
true.
I
It's
think a
hidden.
lot of the yeah, I think a lot of the individuals that we have hired recently kind of stumbled into it, not knowing all that public health does.
Do you think that, and I think you're right, that the pandemic actually helped start the process of educating, but this concept of it being a hidden profession, there's there's pitfalls to that, right?
Hmm.
Because and I always we people probably tired to hear me say it. Part of it I think is easily explainable
Hmm.
because you are in the business of prevention, right? Like you'd rather prevent the outbreak from happening than to deal with it afterwards. And it's just very difficult to quantify or say you should be happy that bell didn't ring. We kept that from happening. But where are some areas you think as being in this for a while and also having the ability of the perspective from a family perspective going back further than your own career, where have been maybe some missed opportunities to take a win and promote or at least put more knowledge out there and awareness for people about the very important work that you and all of your colleagues across the country do?
Yeah, I think probably a good example is there's a local company that I work with, and they actually started off as a couple restaurants here and there, and then franchised out. I think they have last count 14 individual restaurants that they have, a mixture of full service and quick serve, a full-time catering operation, and now they are um moving into local food production. And um from the restaurant side is pretty easy and straightforward for them because they understand that we order our product from the distributor brings it to our establishments, we take that product and we turn it into the final thing for our customers. That's pretty straightforward. They are now looking at baking their own breads. They're for the past 18 months, give or take, um, been butchering their own meats to distribute to their restaurants.
Wow.
Um, they have they're not really sure what they're calling it, a test kitchen, a commissary kitchen, not sure, but they're wanting to expand what they make and then not only just use it for their own restaurants, but also expand it to possibly be a resource for other restaurants, and other products that they can make in this new facility to put into their restaurants. So
They're ambitious with
it's
that operation.
it really is, and they're looking at trying to bring in local grains for the bread side, local
Wow.
produce. They're trying to kind of centralize more local, which is a great goal. Um, Huge learning curve for them. In terms of my role, we have had some, really in-depth conversations about if you're going to go this route, these are the things that you need to really consider for food safety. You can't just start canning soups and then take it to your full service restaurant so they have one less food prep step. You can't just do that.
Yep.
There's certain things that I am going to be looking for. And to complicate matters, they have some restaurants in Washington State. We are right on the Washington-Idaho border. So it's also, you got to make me happy so the people in Washington are happy.
Which is a big issue, right? Just even nationally, especially for chains, regional or national, is the patchwork, right? And what might actually be a violation or directive in one jurisdiction for a location could be not at all in another one. Is that an issue in the bigger scheme or not? I think the industry sometimes complains about it a little bit.
For this particular company, right now the food is only staying within their owned establishments, which helps. But again, they've got big plans, and so there's been a lot of discussion between me and them about what do you want to do, how do you get there. These are the steps that you need to follow. You can't just assume it's same practice as a restaurant where the truck is bringing you everything. You're now kind of expanding, and there's more safety protocols that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, it brings other things into play that a lot of local restaurant owners don't even have to think about, right? Because you've got your supply chain and manufacturing sort of as a category. They're replacing a lot of that with their own stuff.
Yeah, and they did get, so we have 2 land-grant colleges north of where I'm located, and one of the meat science students graduated and they hired them on. And that person has been tasked with going to local ranchers and more or less saying, hey, we got a local business that would buy your product. And that individual did the legwork of getting them in contact with USDA. So I got them to the point of getting their site approved for butchering, or not butchering, excuse me, for processing the meat. And just within their own restaurants, this person was able to take them to the next level. So they have been cleared by USDA. I do not know if they have actually started distributing the product to other restaurants outside of their own, but they're now set up and ready to go that next step.
That's amazing. Also gratifying, right? To be able to actually help an operator or a business that wants to grow and do more exciting things. So you mentioned land grant. Just for I don't know, maybe it's widely known, but I'm a giant nerd. So I think it was the Morrill Act in the 1860s that created them. I don't know why I know that random fact, but maybe just for the audience that might not be familiar with what kind of is a land grant college in general.
Yeah, so I believe you are correct. It's the land grant college. I believe it was tied to one of the goals that Lincoln had as president. But Idaho, the University of Idaho opened in around 1880s, and Washington State University, located in Pullman, 10 years plus or minus. Pullman, interesting enough, the reason why it named itself Pullman is Pullman Cable Car Company was looking for a new place to build a product.
The old Pullman car, the train cars.
And so they were like, hey, if we name it Pullman, maybe we'll get the business. They didn't, but that was
but the name stuck.
Yeah. So the land grant colleges got money from the federal government to establish a place of learning, specifically with a goal of increasing ag production. So that was kind of and attract farmers and things like that. So that was kind of the base of it. So both University of Idaho and Washington State University, they have very heavy programs in ag sciences, food sciences.
Yeah, and I bonus points to you. We
Veterinary
actually,
medicine. So
yeah, and
it's like, what
it's
else?
very practical, right? And
Yeah.
actually, you are exactly right. It was Abraham Lincoln because we just looked it up, 1862, and so okay, well done. That's you're going back what 170 something years to know that.
I also I majored in biology, but had a minor in history. So.
Ah, that makes sense. Like so obviously you like history. I've always loved it. It was a topic I just loved. What do you like about it? It's fun, isn't it?
It is, and it's always so I mentioned earlier I was in the classroom, I taught science, but I always envisioned my history classroom having like strings crisscrossing on the ceiling and then like having parallel events posted hanging on them.
Oh,
So
cool.
because unfortunately the way history is taught is it's taught, this event happened in this at this time, which led to this event, which led to this event. But there's multiple things happening in the background, whether it's in another country or whether it's in the same country or down the street. There's multiple things happening. So it's not a subject that's like in a box. So I had always envisioned teaching history classroom with kind of that. By the way, this was happening over in this other country while we're talking about this topic here. Never happened. But
but you're right. I think even today, even as history's written in real time, we have a problem with like all of these sort of sub-connected yet unconnected things that impact, right? Like it's I don't know whether it's systemic or just the way human minds work, but I don't think we've solved for that, have we? Not even in the modern time.
No. And I mean, anyway, that's just kind of what is also interesting. I just
I'm sorry to go so far afield, but it's that actually would be great because the strings actually give you the ability to see everything contextually. That would have been a fun class if you'd have taught history. That would have been really fun. So you were we've been working to get you on here since NEHA in August in Kansas City. No, Kansas City's next year in Phoenix. Kansas City won't be as hot, hopefully, as Phoenix was. So you entered the NEHA photo contest, right?
Yes.
And is that the first time you've entered it, or have you entered in previous years?
That was the first year. This was the first year.
So why don't we go ahead and let's look at actually set up your picture. So maybe tell us a little bit about the photo that you took, maybe what can't be seen in the photo, why'd you take it, the backstory, and also what are we looking at as it comes up on the screen here?
Okay. Yeah, so I mentioned this company that I've been working with for years. They also have a catering operation. So I showed up and I was like, hey, what's with these jars?
Are those a bunch of pickled things in a jar? It looks like
that's a bunch of pickled things, and actually those jars were sealed. I tapped the top on all of them and they were sealed. There was no air bubble or anything. And so I'm like, this isn't good. So, I mean, they did put a date on everything, which was great. And at this point, I can't remember if the date on the jars was even within 7 days or if it was like months out. I really don't know. But
so what would it have been if it wasn't jarred properly? Like you said, you checked the lids and everything. How long could they have kept food, if at all, in that type of container not properly sealed?
If it was not properly sealed, they would need to throw it away.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they did. So when the interesting part about this catering operation, the way they have it staged is they're actually running meals every day, but they will have like Monday, we need to pull this product for an event on Thursday. And so they're not always in there, I guess is probably a good way to say it. The cooks aren't. because they're doing the staging along the way for whatever events are coming up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So,
So
wow.
this particular, I wasn't able to talk to the any of the staff who were in the kitchen because they'd already gone home. But I was talking to the event coordinator who, and she was able to tell me that these products were canned for a wedding because the bride wanted a rustic wedding and they wanted these jars, kind of a combination of food and decoration.
Oh, that's yeah. So if
And
I don't see decorations or centerpieces when I look at that.
yeah, and she then told me that, well, our cook knows how to can, so he did all the canning. I'm like, congratulations. All of these gonna be thrown away.
So, do you think she was serious that they wanted to use them for decoration, or do you think like that was her
The
default?
event had already, I think the event had already happened by that point.
Okay, so they got their value out of them.
So,
Air
like I
quotes.
said, they were dated. So, and like I said, I can't remember without going back and looking at my photo history and everything. Because I do have another photo that shows the top of the jars.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So, did they give you a hard time? Like, did they?
No, they really didn't know, and so we had a nice little discussion about botulism.
Words that like you don't really hear in a sentence very often together. Nice little chat about botulism.
Yeah, and so then she's like, "Oh, so that's why I don't see these products at the farmers market." I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah. And if you do,
This
you
is
probably shouldn't be buying them.
exactly. So, it was a huge learning, not so much a learning curve, but definitely an opportunity to say this is why it's not okay to do this. They discontinued them this year when I went back to inspect them. I didn't see any can jars, but again, we're seeing snapshots in time so that hopefully they never did it again. So,
And that goes to the part of what you're actually describing here is a big part of what your mission in environmental health is, right? Which is education, the why behind stuff, right?
mhm.
And so it's also a teaching opportunity, hence the nice chat about botulism.
Yeah. Well, and kind of back to I was mentioning this company has a central warehouse that they're looking at trying to provide the the raw product to the restaurants. That warehouse would be providing product to that same caterer. So it's all connected because
Yeah.
it's under the same company, but just a different
And that's
type of.
actually, that's at a sort of more of a micro local level,
Mhm,
but it also is a microcosm of what's happening with us nationally now, right?
mhm,
Too, our meals travel so far to get to our plates that
mhm,
a food safety error or doing something improperly states away can actually
mhm.
make people sick, far, far, far from where the actual problem took place these days.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you take this as part of an actual, is it part of your inspection record, or did you snap this one for
I
yourself, or did you think immediately of the
I
contest?
no, I actually took it as part of a record for this establishment or for this company in general. It's for the most part they strive really hard to provide safe food, a safe environment. They want to do what's right. And unfortunately, when they screw up, sometimes it go big or go home. So,
If you're going to get a
um,
violation, make it count.
yeah. So I snapped a photo and then I did share it with the individual who is kind of overseeing this warehouse concept and kind of reminded them like why we don't want canning. And if you do want to do canning as part of this warehouse project, I have no other way to call it, but here's what you're going to have to do in order to go to that next phase. Um,
Yeah,
And
that's interesting.
they're not opposed to that. It's just you have to go through these steps before you do that.
Yep, the process matters in so many things, especially with like food safety. Is food safety the sort of by volume the largest program in your district, or
Yes.
and then maybe I'm going to guess septic second because
Hmm.
rural you don't have a lot of commercial or the normal
Yep.
municipal systems.
Correct.
What
Correct.
are some of the unique challenges that you deal with? And are there anything that is unique to Idaho? Let's take those two in order, actually, food safety and then the onsite or the septic program. Are there some local things that are unique that you have to deal with in Idaho that may not be as big of an issue with other states or parts of the country?
Um, it maybe it's unique to my area, and probably more proximity. And there's probably some other parts of the nation that also have this issue, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm on the Idaho-Washington border, so we have that interstate commerce that happens. Um, we sometimes get phone calls from individuals saying, I can't work in Washington. I thought my permit would work. It's like, well, it doesn't because you went into a different state for your business. The other part is my town is right on the border of the Nez Perce tribe. So we have that as well. And so depending on where an individual is and if they are part of the Nez Perce tribe, we have to have different conversations and redirect people to the appropriate
So, so
resource.
that's actually a really good one. I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't think it's even come up here on this episode, these series here on the show. Is that I think a lot of people don't realize that there is a separate tribal system, even for environmental health, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
sovereign land. And there is, do you all have a fairly close working relationship? Because I would imagine can be confusing for members of the public. They think, well, I need to call my local health department. But if they were on tribal land, it's not you.
Yeah, that has been a challenge, especially if there's been a change of land ownership. Um, our office may not have the records because the Indian Health Services would have issued the permit, but now it's changed who owns the land. So they're coming to us, but we don't have it.
Yep.
So there has been some challenges in that regard. But generally speaking, it's people who are new to the area that aren't who don't know who to contact.
Yeah. And even not the issue of tribal, although that one is very specifically unique. There's, in Dallas, for example, you've got the city of Dallas environmental health. You've got Dallas County, the same literal metro area. Then you have
Mhm.
Fort Worth has their own, like there's like 7 or 8 in the Dallas Metroplex, actual
Mhm.
departments that carve up different sections of it. And
Mhm.
it is hard for the general public because they'll call to make a complaint. And they're like, what do you mean? I did call Dallas. I'm in Dallas County. They're like, no, it's technically the city or vice versa.
Yeah.
And regions actually probably make it less than that, but you've got the tribal element. And I think that also goes back to just lack of promotion and awareness by the public, right? There's people who, if they get sick, they're
Mhm.
not even aware that there is a department that is there to take the complaint and investigate on it.
Mhm.
It goes back to that whole promotion and building up the awareness.
Yeah.
So, so the picture we'll put up one more time, David. That was second place in the food safety category, and it sounds like you have some others. Do you take pictures frequently as part of your inspection process? Because I know it really depends on the
It
department
it
and the inspector. Some people take a lot, some people never have.
it kind of depends on what I'm doing. So as I mentioned earlier, I also do public water systems. We have to take photos as part of our water survey work for the systems. So then we can send those back to the operator saying we saw this deficiency on, please refer to photo 5, you know. So that program requires photos. but for like our others, it's kind of up to us, our discretion, if we think we need photos.
Do you believe that, the old adage, a picture's worth 1,000 words? Are you a fan, though, for especially certain violations where you feel it tells the story and what's going on better?
Yeah, it does. Because sometimes words just don't cut it. You're like, I'm trying to explain what's wrong with this, and now that we're talking, I should have sent this photo over too. But we had someone install a septic tank, and they put the baffles on the outside, and they were just like, are they space holders, or is this how you? I don't know what's going on here.
And that's interesting, because if they hired someone to do it,
no, they did themselves.
Oh, okay. I guess they didn't Google search it or run it through ChatGPT first.
That's what they said. There was no videos. I'm like, I doubt it. And it was like the first video. I said yellow septic tank installation, and there was like one video from the company, from that specific company, that popped up, like the first one. I'm like,
try again with another excuse. So
yeah.
you take them as part of the inspection process. And do you, so selfishly, I'd just like to put a bug in your ear. We love getting pictures. And so anytime you get one, you're like, that story, I'd love to talk about that one. Please feel free to send it to us, and we can even have you on for 10 minutes just as a segment to talk about it. So the pictures are very popular, even when we do them here, with the environmental health community, because they can relate, right? And it reminds them of things they've dealt with and things of that. So keep the pictures coming.
Yeah, we actually did photos this year for our conference in March, and that was a big hit. People submitted them from work projects. Some of them were, it was just interesting what people submitted.
Are you going to do it again at your next conference?
That was one of the feedbacks. Like, we liked this. We want to see this again. So we're going to try it again.
Well, if you like, just probably normally tell you this privately off air, but actually, if you would like, feel free to reach out to me separately, and we'd love to help you sponsor it.
Yeah.
If cool. You guys do sponsors and things, and if it helps put the conference on, we'd be glad to help and support.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right. So if you don't mind, since we are talking about pictures, we've started doing something more over the last few episodes, which is we're starting to get a lot more community and viewer feedback. And one of them is, as I was just shamelessly asking for, pictures. We're starting to get a lot more pictures, and in some cases even videos. And so we're starting to, when we have esteemed experts on like yourself, actually take one of the ones that came from the community and look at it together and chat about it, because you're eminently more qualified to discuss the details of these things than I am. So we actually have today, it's a video. It came to us via Reddit. And so because it's a video, we don't have the normal quote thing that we can pull up with the person's name. So, but I want to give attribution to the person on there that sent it. Hylaner, Hylaner, Hylaner. Thanks so much for sending it. So David will cue up here, and we'll watch this video together, Bonnie. And I'm curious. I've got the details. I'll read you that the submitter said was going on, but I'm kind of just curious if you have any recognition of what they're doing here before we go into what the viewer said.
Yeah, so I'm guessing she's destroying a product, because it looked like a bleach bottle she was pouring into something.
You're good, actually. So here's what Hylaner said. And so actually, I should have pointed out, Hylaner, a lot of what we get is from the environmental health community, which is the majority of our audience. This actually came in from a non-environmental health professional, because they actually saw it at an event they were at. And so what Hylaner said is, have you ever seen this happen before? And wanted to get the answer from an actual EH professional. Said, I'm not sure the why here, but they were pouring bleach into all the food on the table at this stand. What is this, and why are they doing it? So that was the actual question from Hylaner. It does seem like a pretty aggressive move. So what is the environmental health case for why you would put bleach on everything?
So without knowing other details, like how long has this event been going on? Is this like a first, second, 10th violation? Don't know anything about that. It kind of looked like there was some sauces and some salads in that.
Maybe some
And
fruit.
something like that. So it could have also been temperature abuse had been happening. They're operating without a permit. There could be
a lot of
variety
reasons,
of
right?
reasons.
But I guess like to the heart of why you're doing it, you're actually doing it so that you know the food is unservable, right? Like that is the ultimate way to verify to yourself that you've destroyed it.
Right. And as I mentioned earlier, my mom had worked in public health, and she has had a story that the previous environmental health inspectors, who have now all retired out, they did that with chicken at a facility. I don't know why the chicken was destroyed, but they did that with chicken.
It's
and
interesting.
It sounds like it was the individual had been warned several times, and so this was like,
now it's getting real. And that also,
told you.
Yeah, because that's the thing most people don't understand is usually when a more serious step is taken, it's not out of the blue, right? Like you all are just not typically dictatorial. And so like normally you got to push an inspector pretty far to get to extreme action. It also looked like you might be onto something about, like you said, don't know what the time variables or temperature variables were. It looked like that was a temporary event, which actually generally introduces its own risks, right? Do you have, if you're preparing, do you have a hand washing sink? Like just a lot of things that you take for granted you don't have at temp events that create more risk, don't they?
Yeah. So without knowing more of what is going on and why that individual was destroying the product, it's hard to say.
Right.
But at least the way our operation is through the state protocol is it's always going to be education first, because that's the most extreme, what that person was sharing, that video. So we don't want to get to that point. So how can we prevent that from happening?
Yeah. And be provide a resource so that, because that's the whole thing, right? You're actually trying to prevent bad things from happening. You're not there to cost the business more money. You're just there so that people are safe, which should also be the goal of the business itself too.
Right. And they may not know, like the first time it's like, okay, this is why this is not a good idea. Those look like very, very large containers of product. So they probably didn't get cooled correctly. They probably couldn't stay cold correctly. Again, don't know all the details, but a way, like, if it was their first event, it's like, why do you have so much product? Do you really think you're going to sell that much?
It's a great point. Yes, because you
make smaller. How can we break this into smaller portions so you can keep this at the correct temperature?
Yeah.
That education component is the big thing.
Thanks for doing that. Unprepped or unprepared. It's fun. And Highlander, thank you for sending it in, and for all of you guys in the audience, environmental health community, and people that just have questions they would like an EH person to answer. Please keep them coming. And you can comment on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this on right now, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple. You can comment. All of those get read, and we can deal with it there. But you can also email us. It should be on the screen there now. Beyond@hscloudsuite.com. Beyond@hscloudsuite.com. Thanks, Highlander, and y'all keep those coming. So, Bonnie, you guys get a lot of temporary events there, or not so much since it's more rural?
Not a lot. We are starting to see a lot more mobile trucks, which is good. It was kind of interesting because when I first started, we would see a couple mobile trucks, and I would actually get phone calls from the public saying, "Is this a legit business?" Because they were not common. And so I think around that time is, I think, when Food Network was doing their food truck wars or whatever it was called. So we started seeing more food trucks show up, And now we have had a couple hit and misses, but we have another one trying again of food courts specifically for food trucks to park. We're seeing more permanent food trucks in a location. We have, for the last couple years, we've had like a dedicated food truck night once a month during the summer. So we're starting to see more acceptance of food trucks.
Yeah, it's
So we're not
becoming a
getting those.
cultural phenomenon to a degree, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're not getting these phone calls anymore asking if these trucks are legitimate.
It's not catching on, and I'm thankful for that. I don't know if you all have this there, but here we're in Charlotte, and I've seen it in other cities because I travel a lot, visiting a lot of departments, is somebody selling steaks on a folding table out of a cooler out of the back of their van. It's just a hard sell for me.
Yeah. We do have there's a company that comes through the state like once a year that does that, but it's a company. So they'll set up for like a couple days around like Father's Day or something like that. And then they'll move on.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
We do have a truck that drives around town with a freezer in the back. But I have not seen them actually selling in the state, or at least they haven't bothered to stop and knock on the door on my door and say, "Hey, can I sell you some steaks?"
So so actually, it's a question because actually I'll get asked that. And, it's interesting because I travel a lot, go to a lot of different state conferences and things, and if somebody chats you up on a plane, what do you do? And you're like, I work with environmental health departments. First of all, the name is not very descriptive for the average member of the public. They think, oh, you're associated with Greenpeace, or like they focus on the environmental part. But when actually they understand like what it means, sometimes I get asked the question, and you probably do too. Well, how can I, as a traveler and just a consumer, what can I do to help look out for myself? Like if I go into a restaurant, what are some things that a actual professional could tell me that I can use my own eyes and skill of observation to make a judgment as to whether I'm comfortable here or not?
Yeah, so kind of the lobby. If they're ignoring the lobby, they're probably ignoring the kitchen.
Yep.
So as far as that goes, I also think the public needs to be asking if the vendor is a legitimate vendor. So I know there's a trend of people selling online, cooking out of their homes, saying, "Hey, call me and I'll make you lasagna," things like that. I think it's definitely the public has to be asking questions like, are you a legitimate business? Are you being inspected? Do you have licenses? I mentioned earlier, I also inspect childcare. That's a conversation that is starting to happen, at least in my state, where parents are starting to ask if a childcare provider is licensed. Has a childcare provider been through an enhanced background check? So a lot of things the public can do themselves by just asking questions. And if the operator can't answer those questions, those should be, concerns for the individual.
That's great advice. And also it's a little alarming that people are just starting to with childcare because, it's your children. And I guess there's just been such trust in institutions that there was a story, somebody was on, Caitlin, actually, who's from Colorado. And she was talking about how they actually had a police bus because, speaking of daycares, they were permitted, but they were only permitted for a certain safe capacity. And they actually put up a faux or a fake wall and were hiding like 20 additional children behind it so they could generate that revenue, but hide it from the health department. And they had to literally have the cops come in and raid the place. So there are unsavory operators in that particular space, aren't there?
Yeah. And Idaho had until this year actually had written in their state statute that a local jurisdiction, so a city or a county, could have their own childcare rules as long as they were the same or more stringent than the state rule. And then this last legislative session, childcare was brought up, and it brought that conversation to the front of the public. And the licensing component was brought up. And so the outcome of that was, if a person is going to operate a daycare, it has to be a state license. Local jurisdictions could no longer issue their own license. So it was in the news. So therefore, that's why people are asking if providers are licensed, because it's recent. Now, 5 years down the road, probably parents aren't going to be asking the question, is my provider licensed?
Wow.
We'll just have to see.
It really does matter. News coverage does matter, doesn't it? And so from that perspective, would you advise anybody around the country in AH departments to view the media as a resource and to build relationships so that when that you hopefully can get your message out when it's important you need to, or if they're covering a story, at least you can try to have some input so that it doesn't get too sensational or devoid of fact?
Definitely have conversations with your in-house
like PIO, public information.
PIO, because you want to make sure everything's the same. But this was being tracked through the state legislator tracking process, so you could see when the public hearings were. You could see what the outcomes were. In fact, it passed through the committee the first time as it was presented originally, and then when it made it to the floor, they sent it back because there was too many risks that were passed, and so it was sent back saying, you have to fix this. This is not acceptable.
That makes so much sense. So I know that in your busy day, and we're close on totally too much of your time, but we in talking about stories and we looked at that video, you've done this at the same department too. It sounds like that's also remarkable because a lot of times people move around to different departments. So if, we say, hey, like crazy stories or interesting stories that in your career and time you've experienced, does something come to mind that you're like, yeah, I'd like to share that one in terms of a story that comes from the files of Bonnie, your own personal experience?
I wouldn't say I have any crazy stories, but I will say we do get there's days of the job where it's great. So in fact, the photo behind me is from Hell's Canyon on looking at the Idaho side. So we do have properties that we do have to evaluate. As you can see, it's pretty rocky. And the only way to access those properties is on a boat. So,
wow.
It's a pretty fun day when you have to go take a boat ride to go look at some dirt.
Wow. That's beautiful. Like that's a beautiful screensaver and background. And the only other place I believe I've heard something similar is in Alaska, where there are some villages, the inspector has to fly in on a bush plane to do the inspections in that village. So
we have one inspector that he has to get to a restaurant, and I think that's how he has to do it.
Wow. So who pays for that? Because that's a huge expense for you, or an expense to get there.
Yeah. So in this particular case, it's usually the individual who has the boat, and we will meet them at the boat launch and go from there. This particular day was a trip with our local fish and game office. So kind of also a fun little nature, pointing out wildlife, which is a game I'm terrible at, because apparently they're like, oh, look at the bighorn sheep, and I can't see them. All I see is this white building, and there's like all these bighorn sheep around it.
Oh, that's funny. You guys have there's a lot of wildlife up there, right? Do you have elk and things in your part of the state, moose or anything?
Yep. Moose, limited, elk for sure.
Yeah, and those will mess your car up if you tag one of those on a highway, won't it? Like huge.
Yeah.
I don't have all my personal videos, but I was in Estes Park, Colorado, for the CHA conference. I think it was 3-4 years ago, and was just going to dinner in Estes Park. And I'm like, what's this traffic jam? Estes Park is pretty small. And it was literally a full-grown male elk. And he was walking down, remarkably keeping it straight, right down the center line of the road in town. And it was in no particular hurry, has traffic stopped in both directions. And he's just chilling and moseying between the cars, untroubled at all. It's you see beautiful things in the Mountain West for sure. So I maybe a weird thing here kind of at the end, but we always do try to, when we have on folks, look if they've given, spoken at a conference or different associations, just see kind of what they've done and see if there's a clip they might want to talk about. And stumbled across something completely unrelated to environmental health, but it was about this time last year. It was actually right around Christmas, and it looked like there was a rink there. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Did she have a New Year's resolution to take up skating or hockey or something? So I hope you don't mind. We're going to throw up a Facebook post that we came across, and it was Learn to Adult Skate. $10 a person. And over there you had commented, do I need to sign up or just show up? And they're like, oh, just come on down, Bonnie. We've even got protective gear if you're interested in hockey. And I was like, I wonder if she is or was. So how's that going? Did you end up getting on skates?
No, I had started roller skating about 2 years ago prior to that. So I have 2 pairs of roller skates. And during the winter time, so there's not a lot of opportunities not a lot of indoor recreation is probably the best way to put it. We have a levee system, but with winter, you can't go outside roller skating. And if you want to go roller skating, you have to drive about 2.5 hours away.
Wow.
So I was thinking maybe I might try ice skating. I never did.
I know myself, and I know that it would probably end up with a trip to the ER if I tried it. So I haven't in years. I think I tried it once, like in high school, peer pressure, some kind of event. I can't. I just don't have the balance.
Yeah, I like to ski, but I have never tried ice skating. And this ice skating rink has been around now for about maybe 10 years. And it only is ice skating, so it doesn't flip over into a roller skating rink during the summertime. There is another ice skating rink in the area that's in Moscow that does go into a roller skating rink during the summer, so a little bit closer and better hours.
Fun. And I'm sorry, I know that is random, but I saw it. I was like, oh, ask her about it and see if there's a story there. Is there anything else? Because we just have a chat, right? And so that we like a script or anything. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that we should have, or that is near and dear to you, or something you're involved in that we just hadn't found our way to?
No, not really. I think we kind of covered everything.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And please, if we can help with the photo contest, help you make that possible, let us know. And good luck with the newsletter too, if you don't mind. I'd love to get copies of it as it comes out. I actually love reading those things from different states and regions, because it can give you a good idea of kind of what just ground level day to day is going on, what's important, where the heat or issues are. So I would love to see that for sure.
Yeah.
And also, if something pops up, as we get into a new year, if you guys get into something that, you're dealing with an issue or something, and you think other people might be benefited from hearing about whatever that may be, please just feel free to reach out and we'll have you on anytime. The whole purpose of this is to be there for the community. So as community things rise, whether it's good, bad, challenging, or a happy thing, feel free to let us know. And again, we never get sad when we get pictures either. So, so, well, Bonnie, I can't thank you enough and doing this and waiting for us to get rolling here and giving us your time. Really, really appreciate it. And if we don't talk before, I hope you have a great holiday season, a safe one, and look forward to chatting with you sometime in 2026.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, everybody. That was Bonnie Waldmarson, and a fun conversation, doing great work up there in Idaho. Just a public service announcement. You have 14 shopping days left from right now when you're watching this until Christmas. So it's sneaking up on you fast. For all of us here at the Beyond Data Management Podcast, powered by HS GovTech, I'm Cameron Garrison. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next Tuesday for the final episode of the year, and it will be a fun look back at the first year of this channel and this podcast, and we'll have clips from a lot of the episodes and a lot of the guests that have come on. So we hope to see you next week, same time, same channel. Until then, have a good one.